another episode of Control Alt Access. It's a video and audio podcast about video game accessibility. I'm one of your hosts, Laura. I am here as ever with my lovely co-host, Arevia. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing good. How are you, Laura? It's been
Uh,
exciting 2 weeks.
It's
Oh
been
my
an
god.
exciting couple of weeks. There's been a lot of video game news. The weather's starting to get a bit more summery
Yes.
outside. I'm feeling good today.
Yes. Oh, where should we start?
Oh, where do you want to start? Where do
We
you
we
reckon?
can start with what we have been playing. I think we've been playing like sort of the same this
We've
couple of
played
weeks.
some similar things. We've got a couple of bits that are different, but we've played very similar things.
Yeah. We can start on top with Atomfall. Um,
Yeah,
got sent a key to that, so thank you so much. Um,
as did I. Thank you.
yeah, thank you. It was so. We had a little like chat before and like figured out that this game might not be for us,
Yeah.
and that is okay. Like, not every game needs to be for everyone, but I wanted to still like talk a bit about it
Hmm.
because it is quite accessible, and I
Yes.
am impressed because I am not an FPS girly at all. Like, I
Hmm.
don't, or yeah, I don't do shooting games. I don't do fighting games. I do like Fallout, but then it's
Yeah.
more focused on like the role playing, and you can do so much more. And you can also nearly make yourself sort of a god in the world where you
Hmm.
can just hit anything. Like, I remember, I remember I have like streamed Fallout before, and people like yelled at me because I used the wrong weapon to the wrong like situation. So like, I don't get these kinds of games, but I wanted to try it, and
Hmm.
I was so impressed with the aiming system. Like, this game,
Yes.
I thought when it was like put out there and advertised that this was going to be like, this is a game for only the people who really are into shooters and know
Yeah.
all of these things, but it's not. You can play this
Hmm.
game even if you are like me.
You can definitely turn down a lot of the things that I struggle with in this kind of genre
Yeah,
and turn on a lot of assists and have a better time with it than I think its genre would usually let you.
yeah,
Because it reminds me of games like Stalker that are
yes,
like this same sort of like everything is very post-apocalyptic and everyone wants you dead kind of games that are a lot more everything is brutal and nothing will give you a chance. There's a lot more ways to accommodate that here, at least.
yes. And they also give you the possibility for difficulty and also
Hmm.
customizing the difficulty. So I enjoy that. I played enough to know that this is not my cup of tea, but enough to go like, hey, you guys did something
I,
really cool, and I am impressed.
I played enough to go, I really respect the accessibility stuff going on here. Some of the things I really liked, I like that it starts when you first boot the game up with the UI at double size,
Mm-hmm.
and your first option is, we recommend setting it back to normal size, but like, if you need it bigger size, the screen that helps you confirm you want it bigger size is larger size, and I think that's
Yes.
great.
Yes.
Um, I
And it
love, oh yeah, yeah,
yeah, the text was like, if you went for the biggest text, it was huge. It was so huge that
yeah.
in some cases it didn't even fit. It had to like move back and forward. And
Mm.
yes, we can have a discussion if like that is the correct way of doing it, but I prefer this over no, we couldn't do it because it doesn't look good, because I
Yeah,
would rather want it to be accessible than looking good. So I was just
there,
like,
there,
yeah, you go.
yeah, there are points where if you have all the text turned to its largest, things like you'll be selecting dialogue choices, and some of the dialogue choices are being covered up by the subtitles, so you have to scroll down rather than being able to see all the dialogue options at once.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it's not ideal, but also I would far rather a developer do this and have the big option than say we couldn't give you the big option because it would overlap. It's like, no, let it overlap. Give me the big option.
Yes, yes, 100% yes.
I really like some of the stuff they're doing with like so they've got things like aim assist and various degrees of snap-on aiming, which I really like. But they've also got a bunch of audio cue features that are really nice. Some of them is like the shooting features that are kind of like how Sea of Thieves does it, where there are different sound effects to tell you if you're trying to aim at an enemy via audio, left and right or up and down, whether you're aiming the right place, which I think are cool. Um, One that I've been using, despite having pretty solid vision, just because I found it helpful, was um, all NPCs, including enemies, are just constantly
Yes.
emitting a sound. So you can hear, even if you can't see an enemy, you can hear where they are. And I'm like, yep, I like that.
And
Lots of really thoughtful design things like that.
I also really like the fact that you could get like all the NPCs around you to have a solid color, and that
Yeah,
solid color could just like be in what they would be. Like, is this an
yeah,
aggressive enemy? Is this like a neutral or not sure about you, or is
yeah.
this a nice person?
Yeah, if they're in white, you know they're friendly. If
Yeah.
they're orange, they're an enemy, but they haven't seen you yet, so you're
Yes.
fine. If they're red, they're coming for you.
Yes, and I like that. It took like sort of a bit away of the stress of, okay, how am I going to go around this
Yeah.
situation? So all in all, impressive accessibility, cool game. Sadly, just not my cup of tea.
Yeah, agreed. Like I played enough of it to go, I'm glad that this genre is being made more accessible, but it's not changing the fact that fundamentally this genre's not for me.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I gave it some time, and like, if nothing else, there was some noteworthy stuff in there I saw that I was really happy to see, including one word tone tags before your dialogue choices.
Yep.
I'm like, that's great. Love to see it.
It's so cool. They're doing a lot of small little things. They have thought about it, and then also, it seems like they have gotten the help from the community. So they have found
Yeah.
somebody who actually plays these kinds of game, and it shows. It shows in the accessibility because it's quite noticeable for that genre, and they have gotten help from people knowing the genre, and that is cool.
Yeah. Uh, so shall we talk a little bit about South of Midnight while we're here?
Yes. Oh my god, I have so much to
So
say.
I'm really interested. I don't want to jump in on this. I'm really excited to hear what you think because
Yeah.
a bit of context. I did some mock review work on this
Yeah.
game like a year and a half ago. So I saw this in a very early state, and
Yeah.
I'm very curious to hear your experiences as someone here, like seeing the finished thing is your first experience of it.
South of Midnight, I have like to like cut to the chase and give it in like 2-3 sentences. I absolutely loved the story. Like, it's
Hmm.
art. It is amazing, and it's a story I think a lot of people should watch and play.
Hmm.
Accessibility, happy about it. It's not perfect, but I'm happy about it.
Hmm.
Gameplay, absolutely horrendous. And
See, I don't
yeah,
feel quite as negatively about the,
no,
the gameplay, but I will say the gameplay is, in my opinion, fine.
yeah.
It's very nothing. It's not why you're playing the game.
Yeah, the reason why I'm saying it is because, like, if you see on camera now, I have a lot of marks on my arm because I had to splint up my arm all morning
Yeah.
because it's so lacking of accessibility. And
Yeah, yeah, that is fair.
yes, that is why for me, it just like it's sucking out the energy of the game. So, but like, let me go through all of it because this will be a big rant.
Yeah, oh, no, go ahead.
So I cried. Like, I ugly cried, snot going down my face cried of some of the stories in this game. If you want a game that actually means something, I would highly recommend picking this game up. I am so glad to see, first and foremost, like, Black American folk history, folklore. It's beautifully told. It's beautifully like fun, and
Mm.
it's such a fun way to learn more about folklore. And I always love games that does that. But the music in the game and the
Oh my
people,
god, the
the
music's so
music,
good.
it's, oh my god, like, it gave me chills, especially the first story. I'm not going to spoil anything, but the first story, when I climbed up that like end section, I cried.
It's intense going up that
It's,
tree, and that particular story, for the kind of audience that watches this show, it's a lot.
yes, that hit home.
Yeah.
It made me, no, I couldn't. That was hard for me. So, but like, the story is so well made. The characters, like, I don't know how they have done it because it is a stop motion, so I
Mm,
don't properly know how, like, have they, is these, like, normally when you do stop motion you do dolls, or
mm.
are they actors and then they have a like digitally made it stop motion? I am
So
not sure.
my understanding is you can turn off the stop motion effect and have it be fluid animation. At least in the
But not in the
gameplay, not in the
cutscenes.
cutscenes.
Yeah.
My best guess is that this is motion captured actors that they've done a post processing effect to turn into stop motion.
Yeah. I also think that because Hayes, the main character, is
Yeah.
such beautifully acted character.
Yeah.
And I didn't actually like explain what this game is about, but
Mm.
it is just a character Hayes that loses her mom during a storm, and now she's looking for it, and we're not sure what happened, but she is like getting into a world that is another world, or a world beside
Mm.
our world where other things are happening. You see
Yeah.
stories from past, and she is becoming something called a weaver, and she has to weave out all of these stories, and
Mm.
that is just easier said. And it's just lovely, the music, the story, like how the
Yeah.
game looks.
Everything
Oh
about the game's like whole aesthetic, tone, world building.
yes.
Again, the music's the one I keep coming back to. There's so many very memorable like songs that are tied into bits of the story. I think I can say this one without spoiling anything. There is a character called Two Toed Tom, and the Two Toed Tom song has been stuck in my head for like well over a year
Yeah.
since I played through it. I'm just like, it's real catchy. But even just like the background instrumental music as you're going through levels makes such good use of like um backing choirs and interesting musical arrangements. That's like no game sounds quite like it. And it's wonderful.
And it's also they're playing on the correct music.
Yeah,
Like it is, everything is in style with like Southern American Black
yeah,
history, and it's just lovely. Um, my problem is, so I had like a twofold problem with this game and playing it.
mm,
Like, and this will be most likely one of those games that I will power through, but it will take me a long time because
yeah,
so the game has a lot of cool accessibility settings, like you can uh turn on to character always runs. You can
mm-hmm,
turn off getting, because you have like a thread that you can follow to get where you're going, and you can turn on that to have sound. It has text size that somewhat work, HUD size that somewhat work. Like they are starting to go somewhere, so it is cool to see. The problem I think is, for me especially, and these are personal barriers, I think others will see them different, is that I get quite easily motion sick. And
yeah,
yes, you can turn on the stop motion effect in gameplay,
yeah,
but sadly is that that doesn't follow into the story, like the
yeah,
cutscenes.
yeah,
And problem with that is that I get seasick or motion sick when I see this kind of way. That is why, like, I'm not sure how they have made the characters, because normally when I watch like a motion stop motion film made with dolls, I don't necessarily get motion sick, but I massively got it here. And I think it might be like how you make it post recording it that makes it just hard for me to watch. And on top of that, you cannot pause in every
yeah,
cutscene. You
yeah,
can sort of pause in in-game cutscenes, but cutscenes that is like you get out of the story and the narrator tell the story, those can't be paused.
yeah,
And it's just such a, but I wonder, like, is it because it's a loading screen? That's why you can't pause it. I don't know why it is, but it wrecks my brain. So I often need to
yeah,
like look away and just listen to the story. It's still beautiful, but I
mm,
wish just, couldn't we either get a pause button so that I can just pause, take a break, and go and do something else to stop the motion
yeah,
sickness coming? Or could we just not get the motion sickness? If they have made it so that they have motion capture it, why couldn't we just get it off? I understand, like, I think it has to do with being a developer's decision, and I think that is important, but this is a big consequence, and I think a lot of people will experience the same with motion sickness.
yeah,
um I think also the other thing is that um the game is a bit, you run through a passage. The only thing you can do with that passage is to run through it and like do some um platforming, and then you come to an
mm,
enemy, you do the enemy or you fight the enemy, and then there's a story, and then there is a corridor with platforming again.
yeah,
So it gets repetitive, and repetitive gets hard on your hands if you have problems like me with itch
yeah,
arthritis. yes, you can button remap, and that I'm glad for. I think, again, like, they aren't bad at accessibility. It's just the choices they have made that in general makes the whole game inaccessible. And there is
Mm.
just some things you can't go around with accessibility.
Yeah.
That being said, like, when I am doing the fighting and I could have button remap, but it was just hard. They
Yeah.
force you to use a lot of the R3 and Alt3. That is just
Yes.
killers for my arms.
Yeah. It's one where I am a I have controllers that have back paddle buttons,
Yes.
and you were talking about this on Blue Sky. I think you were doing an
Yeah.
informal
Survey.
survey about this, and I saw someone else mention it. I was like, yes, I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
I don't find the L3 and R3 buttons easy to reliably do. To
No.
either click when I need to, or to not accidentally click when I'm not supposed to.
Yeah.
And I would far rather have a traditional button, and I find it's easier to either have like back paddle buttons, or what I've been doing recently, now that I've got the Xbox adaptive controller and the two adaptive joysticks, is I've been having the adaptive controller on my lap and making the big circular pair of circular buttons, my L3 and R3,
Yeah.
and then having the rest of my buttons on the adaptive joysticks, and that's worked way better.
Yeah. That
Mm.
is smart. Like, and some of it I'm a bit like, I could myself just take in all my equipment and do it. Like, I feel sort of I need to look a bit at myself here. But I also don't want to do that in the form of, I live in a reality that is not the average gamer's reality.
Yeah.
And that is that I have a wall, a literal wall of gaming
Yeah.
equipment that helps me game. That is not the reality of the average gamer. And
Yeah.
also with using R3 and L3, when you get a lot of these arthritis pain that I do, I end up getting tremors because of the pain, because my
Yeah.
arm gets so tired. So at the same time that I'm struggling pressing the button down, I'm after some time starting to unnecessarily press the button down because I
Yeah.
have tremors and
Totally
or
makes sense.
spasms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So sadly, like, I struggled a lot, and I will continue this game. I will want to see
Mm.
the game fold out, but I need to actually sit down and make myself a proper accessible accessible setup to be able to
Setup.
do it. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I can, because I packed away my feet controllers due to travels that I need to take the feet controller with me,
Yeah.
and haven't packed it back up. So I should have done that.
Mm.
That's a bit on me. That being
No, but I get it though.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, but that being said, they have some really cool things. Like, if you are in a fight, you can always just skip it. I think that's really, really
Yes.
cool.
And even outside of accessibility purposes, I'm glad. I think there's going to be a lot of people who are glad that exists,
Yeah.
because, like, putting accessibility aside, I think that the combat in this game is the least interesting part of it.
Yes.
The first time a new enemy is introduced is kind of interesting,
Yes.
but there is a lot of repetition of very similar enemies many times, and a relatively limited move set for you as a character.
Yeah.
And this is somewhat like, it's not the end of the world in that, like, everything else around it in the game is very high quality and well worth playing, and it's a relatively short game. It's not like you're going to be spending 20, 30 hours on it. But I think there's going to be a lot of people, even outside of accessibility, who are going to be thankful for this is another fight that's very similar to a lot of fights I've done back to back. Maybe I just skip this one and keep going with the story. As an option to exist, I think a lot of people are gonna benefit from.
One thing I will say though, like, not to say that this is bad in any way, but if I were to like wanted to up it for the next game, the developers, if they are listening, the next game they are doing, or anybody else that does develop game and are thinking about adding something like this, because you can, yes, you can do the like skip the fights, which is easy. They are the same every time, so you don't lose anything. But you can also skip running portions where you run somewhere. And I did that just because I wanted to try and see how it is. And I felt I lost a bit of like what it was. Because all of a sudden we saw something in that frequency that all the NPCs started talking about. And I was just like, ooh, I lost something here.
Part of me wishes... Yeah, part of me wishes that you could have like a setting to like I watch the character automatically
Yes,
do the running
autocomplete.
sequence so I don't miss it,
Yes,
so that
yes.
rather than jump past it.
Yes, so skip button will just show you the character doing it
Yeah.
as an auto skip rather than just skipping it all through. But like, I
Yeah.
think that is a bit nitpicky. I'm still glad we have this. I think it's a good thing, but there are ways of
Yeah.
improving this game, and I think this game is a typical. They have tried and they really, really tried good,
Yeah.
but it does also fall a bit short, and that is just how it is.
Indeed. That being said, as someone who's played all of this studio's previous games, this is by far the most narratively interesting and, like, their last game, We Happy Few, I actively didn't enjoy the gameplay bit of it. I actively didn't enjoy playing it. To get to one where, at least the way I feel about South of Midnight's combat is, yeah, it's fine.
It's
It's
fine.
nothing special, but
Yeah.
it's fine. Is the step up I needed, I think, for me to think more positively overall about the game.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, the combat isn't bad, therefore I can enjoy the rest of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And highly recommend. And also, one thing I want to mention before we go over, I got really, really happy that you can actually play this game with a lot of language options. And I mean that
Yes.
where the subtitle actually change, so they translate what they are saying. Because the story in this game is so important. Because the story is a story everybody should be like familiar with, and they talk about things like the slave trade and stuff like that, which is things people should like. You should play this game. I can't say it in any other way. You should get this emotional reaction because it's so beautifully made. But if understanding, if English isn't your first language, you still want to play it, you can get it. Like, I played parts of it in Norwegian, and for somebody from a country where we are like 6 million people or 6 something, like we are so small, and we got a game where we can literally read in our native language. I was just like,
Yay!
what is this?
I'm so happy for you on that front. That's great.
It's funny. See, yeah, no, I'm going to take that up later. But like, it's so weird. Like, English is just the standard, and then there is so many other languages out there. And then for once, just finding a game that isn't made in Norway, that is in Norwegian, I was just like, ho ho ho.
I'm so glad. Hooray!
Hooray! Do you have any more games you want to talk about, or should we go over?
I've got one other I'll talk about. I don't need to go into a huge amount of depth on it, but I've been having a lot of fun. I don't think I've talked about this on this show before. I've been playing a game called Abiotic Factor, which not the sort of genre I usually enjoy, and one I would usually have bigger access barriers in than I do, and I've been having a lot of fun with. So this is a first-person sort of crafting, survival, exploration kind of game. You are starting your first day at a new job at like a scientific facility that's very much like a Aperture Science or Black Mesa. Your sort of mysterious government organization that's doing some weird supernatural stuff in the basements somewhere underground. And you're taking your like elevator down to start your new job, and then alarms start going off and something's gone wrong. And it turns out this place is containing, like, I don't know if you know the SCP archives. But that sort of scientific supernatural monster stuff. A bunch of things have broken out of containment, and the facility has basically locked down the floor you're on to be like, well, the monsters won't get out, but neither will all the people trapped down there. So now you're trying to, like, scrounge materials to survive, but also work your way back up, maybe to get out of this floor you're trapped in and get back to survival. And usually this is not a genre I enjoy. I'm not a big fan of your sort of go on a little excursion. Oh, I broke down some desks and got some wood and some computers to get some electrical parts, and then had to go back to the base and try and find food and water, and then do a slightly bigger excursion. And I don't know if it's just because part of it's been I've been playing it with Jane, and having one other person to play it with has really helped, because it's meant someone can be focusing on the tasks that keep us alive while the other's focusing on excursions and vice versa, and it feels like we're doing less. I have to stop progressing the game to do a thing before I can get back to what I wanted to be doing.
Yeah.
Um, Part of it's just the setting's really cool. These kind of games, I tend to assume they're going to be procedurally generated or randomly generated.
Yep.
But this is very deliberately like a huge, very deliberately designed environment. Lots of really good design where you'll take like a really long walk through various sectors and then you'll open a door that's only openable from one side and suddenly realize, oh, that loops back to right near where I built my base. That's a whole big shortcut I've suddenly opened up. And there's a lot of very smart level design like that that keeps feeling really clever as you open routes that create new shortcuts back to yourself. Um, there are things in this game I have had to kind of delegate to Jane because they are accessibility barriers that I think something could be done about, but I don't know exactly what the answer would be. So this is a first-person game, and they tend to be a little iffy with motion sickness for me at the best of times.
Yeah.
There is a bunch of settings you can do to reduce, like, head bob and sway and increase your field of view, which have all helped. The big example I have of something in this game that, like, really throws my motion sickness and I've had to be like, I can't do this, Jane, you're going to have to do them, is there's these really big flatbed trolleys on wheels you can use to, like, move around lots of equipment at once if you want to, like, collect way more resources than you can fit in your backpack to take back to your base in one trip. But if you ever go downstairs, the camera perspective keeps flipping between straight forward and down in like 90-degree influence because it's like this flat,
Oh no.
like this very flatbed truck doesn't quite know. It's not a slope. Stairs aren't
Yeah.
quite a slope, so it's trying to point down, up, down, up, down, up as it goes down each step, and that
Ooh, yeah.
absolutely does not do well for my motion sickness.
Nope.
So I've had to either ask Jane to take it up and downstairs for me or close my eyes when I'm rolling up and downstairs. And it's like it's manageable. And I think the thing that's really helped with me being able to keep playing this, because I've played this in like I played like a 5-hour session at one point with Jane before I had to put it down, which was really good for me, is the fact that there is stuff that isn't going off doing those excursions to do where I can just stand around and still be productive. And I can give my motion sickness a bit of time to settle down. I've fallen a lot into doing the cooking soups and things back at the base.
Yeah.
Where anytime I'm like even vaguely feeling like motion sickness is starting to come on, it's like I'll just stay at the base and not look around too much and fill up my pots with water and clean the water so it's drinkable and put
Yeah.
my ingredients in and make some soup. And then I'll get back to going out and looking places for materials when I feel like it's settled. And that bit of gameplay loop has let me keep playing this way longer than I would otherwise be able to.
Yeah.
Um,
That
yeah.
reminds me of how I am playing Raft, so yeah.
Yeah. The last thing I'll note about it that I think is really fun is there's a really neat system for inventing new things you can craft, which is anytime you pick up like an item somewhere in the world for the first time, if you've now picked up at some point in the game all the things needed to craft something new, you'll get this like little idea in your menu. And it'll tell you like, oh, you now know the things that would allow you to craft an electric baseball bat. Let's pick a really easy one. And there'll be lots of pictures at the top of the screen and a few slots down the bottom on this brain of like, work out what things will craft electric baseball bat. And that's quite easy. You're like, okay, big piece of wood, a battery, maybe some electric cable. And if you get it wrong, it's not a problem, because like it'll show you which things were correct and it'll blank out the things that were wrong, so you just try some new things in the other gap. But if you get it right the first time, it feels like, oh, yeah, I worked out through context what was going to craft that thing. And it's not always as simple as, like, electric bat, but it feels weirdly cool when you work out through context clues how to craft the new thing and you get your new recipe.
That's cool.
There's also occasionally portals to places that, like, in other dimensions that aren't the science research facility, and those have a really different energy to them that I like. I love going through a portal and being like, one of them, it was Silent Hill, but there's 30-foot tall, very spindly giants storming around trying to find you.
Oh, scary.
One of them was like a nuclear train that someone on the train said if the train stops moving, time stops. And we were like ransacking items off of the train that can't stop or time doesn't work anymore. And these little, like, excursions into weird pocket dimensions have been, like, a really nice little flavor thing to break up the action. So yeah, I've been having a lot of fun playing Abiotic Factor the last couple of weeks.
It sounds fun. Now I want to play it as
Yeah.
well.
uh, should we move on to the other bit now? Should we talk
Yeah.
about Switch 2, which I think we're
Yeah.
both itching to talk about?
I'm itching and scared.
Yeah. So Nintendo formally revealed the Switch 2 in a big
Yeah.
Nintendo Direct this past week. It was an hour long, and there was a whole bunch of really interesting stuff to talk about from an accessibility perspective that I was surprised at how many positive accessibility and representation things we came away from this
Yeah.
week with.
Yeah.
Where do we want to start?
Let's start with the accessibility. That is why we're here. So let's start with
Yeah.
on top with the accessibility. So they, as soon as they were done with the Nintendo Direct, they published a Switch to accessibility
Yeah.
setting page, which
Hmm.
is, as somebody who is always crying for more information, I
Yeah.
nearly, I don't know, fell off my
It's-
chair. I was
The
so
console
shocked.
the console's 2 months away from release and they talked about accessibility settings. You know
Yeah.
who didn't do that with their next gen consoles? Neither PlayStation or Xbox
Yes.
talked about their accessibility software, like system level software settings before
Yes.
release.
Yes.
Nintendo, I would never have expected it from. I was so
Never.
excited.
Never.
And
Some
they had that page was really good because it had like the stuff that's returning from the Switch 1 and the new stuff. And for most of them, they had like videos demonstrating like, here is a chance to look at what the larger text sizes are going to look like, for example,
Yes.
or here's what the text to speech implementation sounds like. And I'm like,
yes.
lovely.
This is so welcome. Like there are all the
Mm.
other like the things that was in the Switch 1. So we still have button remapping and we still have zoom. So tap the home
Yep.
button twice and you get zoomed. So we both have that, but now we have things like scaling text like all the way up to maximum. That was big. That was like
Yep.
big. We have, you can change like this display color. So you can, I said dark mode, but technically it is inverted colors.
Yep.
We have high contrast mode, so it just makes lines and stuff bigger. We have bold
Yep.
font, so just make the font
Yep.
more bolder. We have we have text to speech.
Yes. And it's not just text to speech in terms of reading the text that's on screen. For the system level navigation, there are hidden invisible like descriptions
Yes.
of how to navigate that are also in there. So if you turn on text to speech, it won't just be like button 1 this. It'll be like there is a list of buttons on the left
Yes.
that are your main menus, and on the right is your sub menus, and then it will start reading the left menu list. It's like
actual
that's
proper
well thought out text to
Yes.
speech.
Yes. And you can get to different voices and you can change how fast it is. You can actually
Yes.
Well, we couldn't see how fast we could make it, but you can make it like it went up to what I assume is 200 or 150, so you can get it quite faster, which I
The fact that they at least acknowledged, like, we recognize that people who use text-to-speech tend to want it faster, is, again, a great sign. And if it's not fast enough for what people need, this makes me think that Nintendo would actually listen if told, could you please increase the top speed that it plays at?
Yeah.
Like, this feels really like they're listening in a way
it
that
does.
it hasn't felt like for a while.
And we are getting something new, which is called game chat, which is where you
Yes.
can turn on camera. Sort of, it looks like a Discord call, to be honest.
Yeah.
You turn on chat, so your screen of gameplay gets a little smaller, and then on the bottom you get up to 4 rubrics where like each person talking. And those will
Yeah.
also be accessible, where they both will have text to speech and also speech to text. So live captioning,
Yeah.
I assume there is live captioning.
Yeah, they haven't show. This is the one place they didn't show videos. But
Yes.
my understanding would be, if you speak out loud and your friend has the speech to text setting on, they will see a automated transcript on screen in text of what you've said.
Yeah.
The alternative is they have said that there will be a way to type text and have it read out to your game chat friends, which I assume would be you'd either use something like. They've shown stuff to do with phone interactivity, so
Yes.
I'm wondering if it'll be type on your phone the text and it plays out as audio on their end of game chat. We don't know exactly the implementation, but it's great to see they're facilitating in-game voice chat that can be accessible that way.
It's really, really cool. I am so like speechless. It's actually just what I ended up being when I saw this the first
Yeah.
time. Like I did not expect this at all.
And the thing I think is worth noting about this is we've had a couple of things both historically and recently with Nintendo that we've praised on accessibility, but they've generally been Nintendo of America specific.
Yes.
We recently had the ESA and the accessible gaming store tags initiative. Back in the day, we had the NES hands-free controller.
Mhm.
And we talked at the time. We talked last week when we were talking about the store tags standardization. Um, that it was great to see, but it was worth noting this is Nintendo of America. This doesn't signal anything about like Nintendo in Japan.
Yep.
This accessibility page says Nintendo of Japan's getting caught up and getting on board, and
Yes.
that's wonderful.
I think it's really, really cool, and I am shocked. The
Hmm.
only thing I am missing right now, I made a TikTok about it, and that is I'm missing still like a co-pilot version. They don't call it
Yeah.
co-pilot anymore. What do they call it
It's
now?
controller assist now.
Controller
Yeah.
assist. There we go. Which is not a good word for it. Sorry to
No.
say, but where you can make it so that you can play on two controllers at once, and the
Yeah.
system think it's one player. So that if you
Yes.
have a like a Hori Flex controller, you can still use your Joy Cons because you cannot do that today.
Yeah. That being said, it's a great step forward, and it's another thing that makes me feel like for something like controller assist, I'm less afraid to kind of bug Nintendo about it now and to go,
Yes.
this would be a great feature, I'd love to see you
Yes.
do it. Because they've put their foot forward to say, we are paying attention and being proactive about accessibility. Great, we've got ideas.
Yes. But do we want to talk about the reason why so many people are angry then? Because that is sort of in somebody commented on one of my things
Yeah.
that this has to do with accessibility, and I agree. I didn't take it with because I didn't know at the time, but that is a price.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think it is worth, before we get into this, making a point of saying I don't know that the entirety of the blame on this is on Nintendo's shoulders, given it's become very clear in the days since the price was announced exactly why Nintendo maybe wanted to build some safety net into its pricing.
Yeah.
Um, so the Switch 2 itself is £399, $450, which honestly I think is in the range that a lot of people expected.
Yep.
It's between the cheapest and the next one up Steam Deck prices for visual performance that's above the Steam Deck. Honestly, I don't think the console price is a big problem in the grand scheme of things. It's about where people expected it.
Yeah. I have
Game,
one comment
yeah,
on that though, is
hmm,
that there is though so Nintendo will make two systems. So they will make a Japanese system which is you can only get in the Japanese, you can only get in Japan, and you need a
yeah,
Japanese account. I don't think that is a bad thing because, like, sorry, the yen is so bad now, and Japan now
yeah,
Nintendo is a Japanese company. I understand why they would like the people of Japan to be able to buy it. I can understand that, but what it is like in Norway, we're like if I take the price for the Switch 2 over to pound, it
hmm,
will cost £481 in Norway.
ouch, yeah,
And we don't know why. Like, where is that? Is that from Nintendo? Is that the stores that has put on extra tax? Is it Nintendo Europe or Nintendo Norway? Like, who is it who has decided that some countries are getting it ridiculously more expensive than
yeah.
others?
Which
We
is,
don't know
I think,
yet.
fair,
Yeah,
yeah.
we don't know
Um,
yet. I don't have any more comment on it, but I just want to let know that yes, like
yeah,
as a Norwegian, I am sad that I need to take out
mm,
669 Norwegian
yeah,
kroners, 1,000 Norwegian kroners. It's insane.
yeah. And again, I think the place where more broadly the complaints are happening is around
Yes.
game pricing, and
Yeah.
I want to make it clear for anyone who hasn't heard this debate. Some people are presenting this as all games are $90 now, and it's like,
Yeah.
no,
No.
one game is $85, which is like it is a jump up in price, and it's not great. Um, like if you're looking at the rest of Nintendo's first party games, like Donkey Kong is $70, which is still a jump over what it was last gen, but it's it's more reasonable. Um, I think there's a couple of factors that are worth acknowledging, and I'm not saying these to take Nintendo off the hook, but I think they are factors that a lot of people aren't taking on board. One is Nintendo's new game cards are a faster data storage transfer, and physical game cartridges rather than discs have always had higher manufacturing costs.
Yeah.
And knowing the data transfer speeds they're trying to achieve, if you look at the prices of micro SD Express cards, which are the option if you're doing digital storage on the Switch too, you'll see how expensive those are to get the data read write speeds that Nintendo's going
Yeah.
for, to be able to make these next gen games. And those aren't Nintendo produced. So you can look at that and go, oh, getting a small form factor that does this kind of speed is expensive, and that's part of probably what's going on here with Nintendo. It's probably why that for the first time ever, their digital games are cheaper than their physical games. They've always done them at the same price before, which
Yeah.
to me suggests that part of that difference is we can't make these cartridges as cheaply as we would like. But the other part of it is, I think the reason Nintendo didn't announce the price of the Switch 2 during the Direct is right up until the last minute they didn't know what they were going to charge for it, because
Yeah.
Donald Trump was threatening tariffs that were going to potentially affect pricing, and they held off until the last possible minute they could to say the price, and like hours later Trump starts throwing out his tariffs, and like, not to get too much into politics, Nintendo moved all of their manufacturing to Vietnam to try and dodge the tariffs, and then Trump threw like a 70% tariff on Vietnam, which is ridiculous. It's to the point that like in America, Nintendo's had to say we're postponing pre-orders for the console because of the tariff situation, and like, I don't doubt that the trade war that has started between countries is probably also a factor why Nintendo put the price where they did in case this happened.
Yeah,
but it is the fact that the prices are high, and that is an accessibility barrier for disabled people without huge access to funds.
I also have one take on this that I think might be unpopular. So I will start my take now by saying, I understand that I'm privileged as a content creator that can send a lot of games to test. So I get them sent for free, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to start with that. I understand that. So let me know if I'm wrong, because like if this is girl check your privilege, let me know. I'm okay with being wrong with this, but I think there is also a bit, because people, and I've said this a bit on other things, this isn't just a Nintendo take I've had this about others. Games are cheaper today than they were 10 and 20 years ago, because we live in an economics that we need to think about inflation of money. Inflation of money is that money is will be worth more over time. So something you bought for $60 in 1999, which was when like Ocarina of Time came out, that was $60.
Yeah,
that would be $114 today. That's equivalent the same. That is like, yes, and that is, I think the thing is that we aren't unlucky now, or we are. We have just been really lucky for a long time. Because games haven't kept up with inflation for now 20 years, or 20 years. Now they have. And
so
that and also when we were young, we didn't buy our own games, and also we didn't buy the amount of games we buy today. Sorry to say, but again, if I'm wrong with me getting free games and so, but also my friends that aren't content creators, like people have Steam libraries with 200 games they haven't even started. We buy games today on a rate that has never been seen before. And I'm not going to call it overconsumption, because it isn't. Like, that is what we call clothing, because that's a physical thing and it ruins the environment kind of thing. But we are consuming a lot more games now, but necessarily not playing them. So that needs to be in the conversation of this.
I don't think you're wrong. I think that you are right to point out that, like, if you adjust for inflation, game price, like, even these new, like, the price of Mario Kart is roughly the same as it's been for the last, like, 5 Mario Kart releases, have been roughly the same price adjusted for inflation. I think that the point I would say is the price of games hasn't risen with inflation, and it's probably fair for it to do so to a certain degree. it feels like games are getting more expensive referentially, not because games shouldn't be rising to match inflation. It's that um, housing costs have been
Yeah.
rising, have been outpacing inflation. Like landlords been
Yep.
incredibly greedy in raising rent way above inflation.
And food costs.
Wages have not been rising to meet inflation. Your bosses are
Yes.
not paying you, and like the bosses are not increasing your wages to match inflation. So yes, you have less take home money compared to the rate of inflation than you did a decade ago, and as such, a game getting more expensive will hurt your pocket more than it
Yep.
would have done a decade ago. I don't think that is entirely the video game industry's fault. I think part of that is the fault of, you know, basic necessities of life being price gouged for corporate profit
Yeah.
while your bosses do not pay you properly to match inflation.
Yes. And
Um,
I am really standing on the thing that I think technically we have just been lucky for games and consoles to keep their price
yeah.
down. And sadly, what we have experienced now is that they, on one go, say, no, we are going to raise it.
I
I think it is a good conversation also seen, which is an actual good conversation, is how, like, when is a game too big? Like, when is something becoming too much of a bureaucracy to make so that the price gets higher? I think that was a good argument some people made. Like, they talked about, it's also a good conversation to have. And yeah.
I would have the conversation in the other direction. I'm honestly not that fussed about a game being the price that Mario Kart 8 on the Switch 2 is. If microtransaction filled games that are like trying to get extra money out
Oh
of you here, there,
yeah.
and everywhere, full of loot boxes, were like price capped so they couldn't cost more than a certain amount.
Yeah.
Like a Nintendo, like I don't think Nintendo has ever released a game that I can think of that's constantly trying to like squeeze random money out of me. Like generally their games are you buy the game and it's a complete thing. They maybe sell you a DLC that's a one-time extra thing, but generally it's like the game is the game. I don't mind paying for that. I do mind paying this kind of price for a game if it's then also going to try and squeeze microtransactions
Oh
out of
yeah,
me.
yeah. Microtransactions can go and lay in a bed and stay there. Nobody likes them.
um,
But sadly, and sadly, with microtransaction, they will also not go away. What was it like? They say one skin in a Blizzard game pay like So salary is the of all organizations. Salary is always the biggest cost of a company in, especially in the West. And like
yeah,
Blizzard said that selling one skin for one day gives them income for salary for a whole month.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's depressing, and I don't like that this is where the
yes,
industry's at. But
yes.
yeah,
I
and
think
again, if
that is
I
a more
yeah,
horrible thing. But again, yeah, I
yeah,
understand what people are
it is
angry
what it
about.
is.
Yes,
No, I understand people's frustration at the
yes,
pricing, and they're not wrong to be upset about the pricing.
yes.
I think there's a lot of factors that partially explain the pricing, and part of it is like take the anger you have at Nintendo for this game price and maybe point it at landlords and the government.
Lawmakers,
Maybe be
yes.
angry at your boss and landlords at the government that they are forcing you to not have enough money to be able to pay for a Nintendo
Is
game.
Switch 2 the one thing that is going to radicalize gamers? What is
Since
this?
since since the tariff war kicked off, I have seen people who were really annoyed at Nintendo have swapped to being really angry at Trump. And that
Good.
has given me a little bit of joy. I'm like, yes,
Yes.
gamers uprising. Let's make being mad at Trump a gamers' rights issue. Trump,
Yes.
stop the tariffs. We hate you, Trump. You're making the Switch 2 unaffordable and hard to pre-order.
I'm going to do that. The
If
food cost in Norway is ridiculous at the moment. So I'm going
yeah,
that. Yeah, that's going to be a new thing for me as well. Don't be angry at the game makers. Be angry at the lawmakers and the grocery store
exactly
owners.
right. But other stuff that was in the Switch 2 Direct. There's some technical aspects of it that I think are interesting. 120 FPS screen. That's
Yep.
pretty cool from the perspective of even if your games aren't going to run at 120 FPS, they can run at 40 FPS, which is a division of 120, which looks a lot smoother than 30 without having to have that much extra processing power.
Yep.
Great for making games look smooth on a handheld. It's also, they didn't mention this in the direct, but it's a variable refresh rate screen, which means you're much less likely to get screen tearing, or have it be so noticeable if small dips in frame rate happen. All of which is great for people who have motion sickness.
Yeah.
120 FPS variable refresh rate screen means playing handheld, motion sickness is going to be a lot reduced, which is really nice.
Yeah.
We got confirmation that the Joy-Con can be used as mice.
Yeah.
You turn a Joy-Con on its side and you use it like a mouse, which is my opportunity to talk about.
Yeah.
I designed an accessibility peripheral for the Switch too.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, it's the first one. It is a block of plastic you put your Joy-Con in sideways, so you're not holding like a thin thing in the middle of your hand in mouse mode. You have something more ergonomic to rest your hand on that's
Yep.
like the size of a mouse. That's just a free 3D print file that I will link in the description of this video. You can just print one yourself and have slightly more comfortable handhold if you're doing mouse mode.
I am looking forward to like all of this with Nintendo starting doing more like accessibility stuff. I am starting to sniff out that maybe we will get our own accessibility controller for Nintendo soon. I'm calling it.
I'm hopeful.
Yes.
Part of me hopes we would see it
now.
announced during that direct, but like I kind of believe it could happen now, maybe.
Yeah, like all of the others also didn't take it with their main controller. They took it some years after. So Nintendo 2027.
Yeah, I would love to see them confirm that the Hori Flex works on Switch too.
Yes.
But part of me wonders, is the reason they're not confirming that because they want to wait and talk about their own thing they're working on?
Yeah, maybe we're a bit delulu.
Possibly. Well, I'll say this: I'm going hands on with the Switch 2 next weekend. So by the time we record next, I will have tried it.
Yes.
I might bring my Hori Flex along and just ask politely whether I can try plugging it into the dock and see whether it works.
Yeah.
I can't guarantee they'll say yes, but I'm gonna try and be an investigator and see whether the Hori Flex works with the Switch 2 if I can next weekend.
Yes.
I'll ask very sweetly.
Last thing we need to talk about is Drag X Drive, the new wheelchair basketball game.
I was so excited to see this in the direct. For anyone who's not seen it, this is a first-party Nintendo-developed 3v3 wheelchair basketball game that's sort of like your Rocket League style, slightly arcadey sports game. You use the two mice to mimic the rolling of your wheelchair wheels. If you want to go forward, you push both forward at the same time. If you want to like turn to one side, you either just push one wheel or you do one wheel forward, one wheel backward to more quickly turn. And then you use gyro motions to throw the basketball in the hoop. Yep. And I think it's really cool.
It is so cool. And what is actually like in all of this, has been like surprising me the most is that I have seen a lot of TikToks about this game, and also from people that I am scared making TikToks about disability questions because they are not normally nice people. And their comment section is full of people going like, no dude, this is actually just representation, this is cool.
Yeah.
People are like,
that's
happy. Overall, people are just happy.
I've seen a lot of like YouTube people going, I don't understand, what's the point of this, I don't get it, it doesn't seem intuitive. But weirdly, so much like you, I've seen a lot of comment sections going, no, this is really cool. And I'm like, thank you, hooray, okay.
Like, imagine if we get like a whole generation knowing how to steer a wheelchair. Manual wheelchair. Because they play this game.
There's a lot of really nice stuff to say about this game. First of all, I've been really enjoying watching commentary from people who play wheelchair basketball going,
yes,
that's a really accurate design for a wheelchair you would use in this sport. That's great. And I'm like, lovely. Second of all, really lovely comments I've seen from wheelchair users about the momentum of the wheelchair, being like, oh yeah, no, you have to put some work into like build up speed.
Yes.
You're not gonna like jump up the top of that ramp without really getting some speed going. But also like, Nintendo has always been, at the start of their new console generations, very into like, we have a new gimmick with our controller. What is a natural fit for that gimmick? Yep. And I love that someone at Nintendo went, oh, we've got two mice, and was aware enough of wheelchair basketball to go, oh yeah, these mimic wheelchair movement really well. Let's just very casually build a whole game around this real world sport that is largely played by disabled people, not entirely. Wheelchair basketball leagues, very encouraging of
Yeah.
able-bodied people coming to join play.
Yep. Yep.
But like a game that is so inherently built around disability, and that someone at Nintendo was like, yeah, I know enough to know this would be an intuitive control scheme, and that people up the chain at Nintendo went,
Yeah.
yeah, this is. I would argue this was the big Nintendo game in the Direct that was like the showcase of how the new mouse
Yeah.
controls work, and it's so cool that it was a real world representation of a sport.
And I just, in general, think this is really, really cool. Nintendo used to be the forefront of, like, they always been the forefront of family, but in that family, they included disabled people because that is such a big part of having a family. We all will experience being young and not having properly learned how to do things with our body, and we will all experience being old and losing abilities with our body. That is part of being a family, part of life. And Nintendo used to be so good at this, understanding that. They have fallen away from it, and all of a sudden they're back. I am over the moon seeing this. I am so excited.
Also, very quick thing to note. There seems to be some accessibility settings stuff that we can maybe, or design stuff we can intuit from gameplay that was shown during the Nintendo Treehouse, such as bright coloured outlines around the enemy team so they're easy to spot. If the ball's not on screen, there is a bright colourful circle indicating which team currently has the ball and pointing you in the direction of it.
Yeah.
Little details like this are really nice, and I'm like, you're thinking about accessibility in your overall design as well, and
it
feels like a really good step forward for Nintendo, and I'm so happy about it.
I'm so happy. Like I can't wait. And yeah, like in all of this, like people have their reservations about it. I think people should be allowed to have that, but also for some of us, just let us be happy about this. We can have two conversations going at the same time. We're angry at where we are angry at. They're allowed to do that. And also let us be happy, because I've seen some people starting commenting like, you shouldn't be happy about this because it's on top of something else. But let us have a bit of happiness around this.
Let me be excited that Nintendo's going in a good accessibility direction and representation direction, and that I'm excited to play new video games soon.
Yes.
That's fun.
Yes, and also we can hold two thoughts at the same time.
Yeah.
So we will be able to do that.
That being said, Drag X Drive, I do hope that there is an alternate control scheme for it, just because I do recognize there is going to be people for whom the wheel motion is going to be difficult. I'd love to see an alternative that's something like push or analog sticks in that same motion.
Yes.
So that you're just using thumb rather than the whole arm movements. I think that would be relatively doable. I want to see some kind of experimentation in that realm.
100%.
But I love that the default control scheme is push your wheelchair, throw the ball.
Yeah, and I also I'm looking forward to see what speedrunners are going to do with this. Because if there's somebody who's going to geniusly figure out something, it's either part of the disability community or the speedrunner community.
Oh yeah. So yeah, did you have anything else you wanted to say while we were on this?
No, other than like, I think it's cool. It's been nice to see all of these games mentioned. We saw Silk Song, which was insane for like 6
it's still
seconds.
Alive.
Yeah, like, oh my god, people! I thought that game, and they said it will come out now in 2025. Wow,
I believe them. I think it's going to be this summer. I think it's going to surprise drop in the summer.
Yeah, and I also think that I think, price aside, but with time, Nintendo have come back into the competition with Microsoft, Xbox, and PlayStation. Right now, the Nintendo Switch 2 is a PlayStation and a PlayStation Portal in one. And the fact that Nintendo have games like Elden Ring and Split Fiction, which are the two big games for Xbox and PlayStation on their controller now, and Nintendo are again a competition. This is scary and really fun.
It really, like, even when the Switch 1 came out, people were like, is it going to be able to keep up with ports even before next gen happens? I think that was a reasonable concern.
Yeah.
like even putting aside price just for a moment, watching that hour-long direct, I kept being really surprised by the technical performance of games and what they were pulling off getting ported. Things like, oh, Borderlands 4, the footage looks really good, and he seemed to imply it's coming to Switch 2 the same day as it comes to other platforms. I was like,
Yep.
oh, that's great. Um, Elden Ring, but also a brand new original exclusive to
Yeah.
Switch 2 from Software game. Seeing games like Hitman, like lots of like Cyberpunk running on it,
Yeah.
including the DLC that didn't run on last gen, that didn't run on PS4 or Xbox One. Um,
And
but also just seeing stuff like Nintendo's first party, like you can play Metroid Prime in handheld mode at 120 frames a second. I'm like,
yes.
Nintendo, where did you
What
when did you get
happened?
technically competent again?
And the thing is that I've seen some people say like, yeah, but if I play Elden Ring on my PlayStation, it will most likely look better.
Oh yeah.
And yes, yes, it will. But I am going to go on a limb here without any numbers to say that most gamers don't give a flying fuck
Yeah.
about that.
I
As long as it looks good, looking good and looking brilliant, people
Yeah.
don't care.
And
As long as it looks good.
Yeah. And weirdly, there's some examples of games that like are going to look better on Switch 2 than other platforms, or will be the best versions of them. Like Yakuza 0. That doesn't have an English dub for it available currently. The Switch 2 version is having an English dub and new cutscenes that weren't in other versions, and
Yep.
a new online mode, and it's at 4K 60 frames a second. And I'm like, oh,
I said
oh, a
when
third-party game will look and run and be most feature complete on Nintendo. Where? What?
I said when we watched this on my Discord, we were talking, and I said that someone at the headquarters of PlayStation and Xbox right now are pissing their pants. Because
Yeah.
they, like Nintendo for years now, has just been like the kid who likes to like play with themselves over at the sandbox. And we have loved it. Like, I am that kid, so I've loved it for years.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the kid was just like, nah, I'm done. I'm coming over and playing with you guys. And it came out of seemingly nowhere.
Yeah.
And they are actual, because one of the things is that a lot of people who buy Switch 1 are parents who buy them for their kids. And then when their kids, like the kid are 4 to 6 years old, parents buy their Switch because it's a safe controller with a lot of parent control on and chill games that are from Nintendo. And then when the kid after 10 years get like 14, 16, the parents buy them a PlayStation or an Xbox or a PC, one of those. But now you're with the grown-ups now because you want the grown-ups games. So then they buy them that controller. That is away now. All of a sudden, this console is like, oh no, we can buy this for the 16-year-old because they can still play Elden Ring. They can still play Fortnite. They can still play Cyberpunk. They can still play these games.
Yeah. I'm very excited that this is by far the most third-party support for big games we've seen on a Nintendo system at launch, and that feels like a really good sign. I am excited to see where that goes.
I like now. It's just the only thing that could have surprised me now is that if Valve goes out and say we have come together with Nintendo, you can now play Steam games.
Honestly, the one thing that there's only one negative I really have about the Switch 2 announcement, and for me that is, they announced the release date as June 5th, which was the day that I was planning to do the Accessibility Summer Showcase. And I've now had to go, can I move the showcase one day earlier or later?
Yeah.
Not just because of wanting to play the Switch 2, but because I know that everyone who cares about games is going to be paying attention to the Switch 2 and not the AA Showcase that day. I'm like, I don't want to compete with Nintendo.
No, I think that sounds like a good idea.
And thankfully, like, I hadn't yet done the big push of marketing to, like, get the AA Showcase on all the Summer Games Fest timelines yet. So I hadn't, like, I'd minimally advertised the date to developers who wanted to be involved, so I've had to email all the developers and go, hey, do you mind if we move it, like, to the 4th, maybe? Do it one day early, just because you don't want to compete with the Switch 2 any more than I do.
No. Oh. No, this has been fun. I can't wait. 2 months. 2 months.
2 months. I'm very excited for next episode of. Let me look at the calendar. Actually, 1 second. The next time we record this will be after GA Conf,
Yep.
and also I will have played the Switch too.
Yeah.
It's gonna be busy next time we're back.
And it's going to be a live recording next, isn't it?
Yeah, we're gonna record. We're both gonna be at GA Conf this year,
Yeah.
so we're gonna do a live recording at GA Conf. We'll see how timings go. Maybe it'll be like last year where it's just day one. Maybe we can make it be both days. We'll see how the schedules line up.
Yes.
But yeah, should we do self-promotion and wrap up for this week?
Yeah. Hi. My name is
Hey.
Arabia, and you find me on social
where
media.
are you on the internet?
You find me under the name Arabia everywhere except TikTok because somebody stole my name. There I am, Arabia Gaming. I lately I'm focusing a lot on TikToks, so if you want some unique content, come in there. We do a lot of fun things, especially like doing the last TikTok I made where I talked about that I can't trust a fart and it has to be with game accessibility. Comment. Yeah. Look at it on Instagram or TikTok. You will.
It's a good TikTok. Go check it out.
And you, Laura, where can I find you?
I'm at Laura K Buzz pretty much everywhere on the internet. Check out my YouTube is the big one. Go check out youtube.com/Laura K Buzz. You can find a bunch of videos I've been doing recently about emotion subtitles in games. I've had enough content to make like 3 videos about that in the last 2 weeks. A bunch of videos about the Switch 2. Go check those out. Laura K Buzz. You'll find me pretty much everywhere. And now my brain is struggling to do words properly because there's an ice cream van outside making ice cream music at me. And I would usually edit around this.
This is too funny.
No, this is where I demonstrate to you the joys of being an autistic person trying to record podcasts. Is sometimes a sound will happen and my brain breaks. Thank you. There we go. Thank you everyone for watching. This has been lovely. We'll be back in about 2 weeks, probably with a GA Conf special. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Goodbye.